Hello everybody and welcome to Edshed. Today I have a new video on leveling for you. In this video I'm going to show you how I got a character to level 80 in 23 hours of playtime without spending anything on boosts or using any sort of crafting materials, etc. In this video I will take you through the route that I used on the map, but before we get into the details of the actual route that I was using, I want to explain some of the rules that I followed and how you can break the rules that I follow to level even faster, and what you're going to need to do in order to follow along with the routes that I show you later in the video. Now, please do like and subscribe to this video if you enjoy it. It has taken me a huge amount of time and effort to get done. It's probably taken me about 50 hours of real life time to make this like 15-minute video. So a like and a subscribe would be massively appreciated. And I really hope this video will help you get characters to level 80 that bit quicker. Okay, so part number 1 is an introduction to the rules that I followed in order to make sure that this guide could be usable by anybody, even if you're brand new to the game. So the rules went as followed. Number 1, I would not spend any money that the character had not earned themselves. Rule number 2, I would not use any materials the character had not earned. Rule number 3, I would not use any boosts the character had not earned. Rule number 4, I would not use any daily rewards at all. And that was because I can't tell what day's daily reward you will be at, so I wouldn't know that you would have them. Therefore, you wouldn't be able to follow the guide if I did end up using them. Rule number 5, the time stated, as in the 23 hours, is the total amount of time played as opposed to the overall time it took me to get it done. Obviously, you could do a 23-hour game marathon. Wouldn't really advise you doing it. For me, I did the 23 hours over 2 separate days, and even then that was quite intensive gameplay to get this done. But yeah, the time stated is the actual time played. Now, as I've already said, I did this so the guide could be followed by anybody, even if you're new to the game. It doesn't require any of the expansions, and the route I did was on a Revenant, and it was before Path of Fire was released, but that should make no difference whatsoever to you following along with this, and you should be able to do it on any class, and any future DLCs that they bring out shouldn't affect it unless they go back and completely revamp the base game, which I can't imagine them doing anytime soon. Part 2. How you can level faster than me and the things that may slow you down. So number 1 is events. I did a lot of events as I went through this guide, and you'll also need to do the events as you come across them, but because there's no guarantee that you will get the same events as me, this could mean that you end up being faster or slower than me, purely based on your luck with what events you're going to receive. The second thing that can slow you down or speed you up is the boosters that you're using. For me, I only used the candied apples. Now, if you don't use them, it is going to dramatically slow down the speed at which you level. And equally, if you can use a better booster than the candy apples, so for instance one of the paid ones, or maybe your guild has certain banners they can use, then that will also speed you up. So my advice would be to use the best booster that you have access to in order to get to level 80 as fast as possible. Number 3 is I didn't use any crafting, as I couldn't be sure that any crafting I did was entirely the items that this character had gathered. So I didn't want to go crafting some stuff and then you guys not being able to follow along because you haven't had those crafting materials unlocked or gained by your character. But you should definitely do crafting. Crafting I love for leveling up because I think that it dramatically increases the speed at which you can level. If you're brand new to the game, I'd probably wait till you're about level 80, at which point you'll have enough gold and enough karma to do some cooking, and cooking will definitely be the cheapest one for you to do and will give you the most dramatic results. There's a link in the description to a cooking guide, and on that website you'll also find crafting guides for all the other professions if you did want to do them. If you're more familiar with the game and you do have spare crafting materials left over, by all means just use them up, and it will again dramatically increase the speed at which you level your character. Number 4 is I didn't use any level boosts, so I didn't use anything like Tomes of Knowledge. I would recommend that you use any that you've got. I think I've mentioned this in other leveling tips videos I've done. You don't want to go keeping these things until you get to a point where you've got all level 80 characters and all of a sudden you've got a load of level boosts. If you've got any, use them. It will save you hours. Certainly if you've got any like birthday boosters, just use them. Don't hoard them. They won't help later. Actually spend them. It will make your life a lot easier. Part 3, and this is the bit where I'm going to talk you through how to follow along with the route that I give you and the other things that won't be covered in the route that I'm still going to have expected you to do in order to complete it successfully and quickly. So number 1, and this is definitely the most important, is we're going to move from heart to heart, and any heart that you see the route moving through or moving very close to, you're going to need to complete. Number 2 is be in the most level appropriate zone. So you may hear some people say, oh, you need to complete regions to level quickest, or you want to stay in the low level regions because you can kill things quicker, or there's a lot of myths around how to level fastest in Guild Wars 2, and I've actually got a really good video on leveling myths, and that's in the description below, so please do check that out if you've heard any of these or if you don't believe me, because I actually do, I think, quite a good job at proving that if you're in the most level appropriate zone, you can kill things as quick as in the low level zones, but you get a lot more experience. So really stay in the low zone that is most appropriate for your level. You can always come back and region complete and map complete after you've got to level 80. Now 2.5 is very similar, and it's you want the most level appropriate gear. Don't think that you're going to get to level 80 and have only used stuff that you've had as rewards for hearts. It's not going to happen, or if it does happen, it's going to be a very painful process for you. So definitely drop a few coins in the auction house to get some gear that's most appropriately leveled for you. Number 3 is keep your experience boosters up. I've already touched on this previously, but you really want to keep your experience booster up, as that's going to have a dramatic effect on the overall amount of leveling that you get done. It may seem like sort of 15% for like I think the candy apples is a tiny amount, but when you consider that that's almost 10 levels you're not going to have to do, it's a dramatic increase in speed. Certainly towards the end of the game. Number 4 is collect points of interest, vistas, skill points that are on the route. So if you see the route and it runs close to a point of interest or a vista or a skill point, maybe even sometimes going through them, do them, but don't get too distracted. If you find yourself way off the route that's that I show you, then something's gone wrong and you probably want to return to that route. Equally, if you're having a good time, I just value your enjoyment far more than the speed that you get your leveling done. So have fun. But definitely, if you just wanted to get things done quick, don't go way off piece to get this vista that's a million miles away from the route. Just stick to the route and pick them up if they're along the way. So number 5, you will want to do all the events that you run into. But if you find yourself in an event that's going to take forever, so for instance it's like, oh, please build us 1,000,000 snowmen, and you're the only person doing the event, just build a few and then move on. You're still going to get a reward if somebody comes along and finishes it, but you don't want to spend an hour completing an event, because really and truly you can get through about sort of 5 to 10 levels in that hour. So just do a little bit and move on. If most events are worth doing, if they're only going to take you sort of, 3 to 7 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at the most, but you don't want to be spending a huge amount of time doing events. You want to just be moving on. So yeah, just do them if you run into them, and they're not going to take you forever. But events are still important for bulking up the amount of experience that you're going to get. Number 6 is take a break. And I know some of you may be like, no, I just want to level. And honestly, by the time you're getting into sort of like the 12-hour mark, if it's me, I'm just ready to cry and I just want my bed. Plus, like, DVT can kill. And I don't want that on my conscience. So please take a break, have a cup of tea, get up, stretch your legs every couple of hours. Really, truly, you should probably do it more often than that, but at a minimum, come on, guys. But yeah, take a break, and you'll play better once you have rested. I find that if I'm not well rested, leveling takes a lot longer because I'm sluggish and slow and I'm getting killed more often. So have a rest. It will improve the whole thing. It will make it more enjoyable. Okay, so the final bit before we get into the actual route is just a few little pointers. When I say that in this zone you'll be going from level, for instance, 20 to 30, the levels I'm quoting can be off by around about 5. I've just, for the sake of my own sanity, broke it down into nice clear-cut level stages, but you can be up or down by around about 5 levels. So if you're over-leveled at a certain point, don't jump ahead, because that will eventually put you behind. And if you're under-leveled, don't worry about it too much unless you fall more than sort of 5 levels behind. If you fall more than 5 levels behind, something's kind of gone wrong, or you maybe haven't been lucky with your events, at which point I would recommend, doing a little bit of crafting, or maybe doing some just events in the area that you're in, just to bulk yourself up to that kind of level. You never want to be more than, as I say, sort of 5 levels behind. But if you're over, still stick to the full route that I suggest. Otherwise, things will get a bit squiffy as to whether or not you're going to get to level 80 at the very end. And that brings me on nicely to what you're going to do if you are missing a few levels at the end. For me, once I'd completed the full route that I'm going to show you, I was at level 78, I think. I was nearly at level 79, but I certainly wasn't all the way to 80. So for me, what I did at that point was I went onto the Dragon Timer website. There will be a link in the description below, and I was able to do some of the world events, and that was enough to boost me the final way to level 80. Now, you might get lucky, you might be there already. If you really want to speed up, get into those final few levels, do some crafting. But for me, I really enjoy doing the world events, so it was a nice, chill out moment when I was just able to finish up the last couple of levels just by doing a few world bosses. And the final thing is, I'm not expecting you guys to keep coming back to this video to sift through it for the various images of the route that I was taking. So there's going to be a link in the description to a platform. It might be a Dropbox link, it might be an Instagram link, it will be some kind of link where you'll be able to access all of these pictures. You can download them, and by all means just then keep them and have them there as reference for actually going through the guide. Okay, so finally we're going to be looking at the actual route that I took and that you're going to be taking. Now, I'm just going to be showing you the route on the screen, and I may point out some key pieces of information if they're absolutely vital, but I'm not going to spend any time discussing the route that you're going along. In the last bit, I did explain the moving from hearts to hearts, picking up other items. The reason that I'm not going to be explaining any more than simply which line you're going to follow first and super strange bits of information is because it would rapidly turn this video into a 3-hour long one if I did spend 10 minutes on each of the slides, because there is 17 slides in total. Now, if you do want the super duper edge shed amazing strategy guide where I spend 3 hours going through all of the granular details of getting to level 80, I'll do that if you guys can get this video to 1,000 likes and you can get Edge Shed channel past 1,000 subscribers. At that point, I will go ahead and I will do the massive, super long 3-hour breakdown of getting to level 80 as quick as possible. So, without further ado, we're going to start off, and the first screen you're going to see is in Queensdale. And you're going to first pick up the pink line, and you're going to follow it in the route that it shows on the screen. And you're going to make sure to obviously complete all the hearts that it goes past, as many of the events as possible, and there's nothing really more to say about that one. Then once you've completed that pink line, you will teleport back to the keep, and you will follow along the blue line leading you to the swamp and where you're next about to go down into the next section. Although we won't be doing that, we'll be teleporting somewhere else. So once you've completed Queensdale, you will teleport over to Holbrack. If you are playing a human and you maybe are new to the game and you don't know how to get from where I was to Holbrack, if you go back into Divinity's Reach, which is the big city you'll be able to see on your map to the north of you, you can then go in and there will be a little purple marker on your map that you can step into that will take you to Lion's Arch. You can then step into another marker that will take you over to Holbrack. I'm sure that there's plenty of videos on how to do that in other places on the internet. If you do get really stuck, drop me a comment and I'm more than happy to talk you through it. Once you've got to Holbrack, you're literally just following that blue line, as you can see, and that will take you through the next section. There's, again, nothing particularly important or special happening in this map. You're just following along, completing hearts, picking up various points of interest as you go by them. Once you've completed Wayfair Foothills, you're going to want to go into Dessia Plateau, which is just to the, or is accessible by going to the northeast of Wayfair Foothills, where you'll be able to walk in. Now we're just going to follow along the blue line again that you can see on your screen. You're really only popping into this region quickly. I just did it so that I could just finish off a few more levels and just help me along a bit. So I was quickly in and out. I didn't spend a huge amount of time here. I missed most of the hearts. We will eventually come back to Dessia Plateau, but that's all that we're going to do at this point. And these are just some really easy hearts to complete. So with that bit of the Dessia Plateau done, we're then going to come over to the Kazakh's Hills, and we are going to enter from the beginning of that blue line, which is accessible by going back to the point that we finished off at in Queensdale. So if you jump back to that picture, you'll be able to see where that finishes, and that's where we're going to pick up from here. We're going to then move down a bit further to the south, and you'll step out into here. You'll be able to follow the blue line along before teleporting back to where the red line starts, and you'll just follow that to finish off in this region. We'll then move along to Snowdon Drifts, and we'll be able to enter this again through Wayfair Foothills. And once we enter in here, we're going to follow this red line along. You can, at the point where the red line and the blue line intersect, do the blue line first, but this is the actual path that I took, where I followed it right the way around, then teleported back and did that blue line just to finish up a few more levels. It was at this point I was starting to feel like I was almost falling behind on levels for my own plan, and that's why I've done that teleporting back in this section. Once we've completed there, we're going to come back to Dessia Plateau. Now this is the region that we were in a little bit earlier on, and we're going to do some of the slightly harder hearts. The waypoint that you can see me teleport into, you should have picked up to start off with when we were going through Dessia Plateau if you followed the line I gave you. If you didn't, it's no big issue. Just come to one of the ones closest to it and then just walk down here and pick up this line again, following through, completing all the hearts along the route. With that complete, we're going to enter into Darin Fields. Now, this is accessible through Lion's Arch, and you'll be able to get back to Lion's Arch. You should have already gone through it once if you've moved over to Holbrack, so you should know where that is. But go in there, head out towards the north, and you'll basically arrive at where this blue line starts. If you then follow that along its path, as always, picking up all the hearts and any other bits that you cross by, you should get that done in no time. Again, this is quite an easy region to complete. With that done, you'll need to teleport back to Divinity's Reach so that you can access the Fields of Ruin. Once you're there, you'll be able to go into another portal. It'll look like the one that takes you to Lion's Arch, but it's somewhere slightly different. You should be able to just see it on your map, but that will take you over to Fields of Ruin, and it will drop you off basically where this blue line starts. If you follow the blue line until it's complete and then teleport back and pick up the sort of red-pink line and follow that through again, there's nothing particularly surprising or interesting in this map. It's very straightforward and you should be able to complete it quite quickly. So with that done, we're going to come over to Lornia's Path. Now this is accessible through the bottom of Snowdon Drifts. So where you enter in is where this pink line picks up, and you're going to just sort of follow this down. What you can see where the pink line and the blue line intersect is really you can do either of those, but you need to do both of them, but you can do them in either order. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference, but you will want to complete both of them. And where the blue line finishes off, you're going to want to make sure to pick up that waypoint just below it. I haven't done a great job of showing that with this line, but yeah, if you make sure to pick that up, because that will eventually take us out into another region that we'll need to go to later on. We're now going to come into the Harathi hinterlands, and this is accessible through the top of the Darin Fields. Apologies if I keep saying that name wrong, I think I'm getting it right. But again, you're going to enter in at the point you can see on this chart, and there's nothing particularly interesting here, with the exception of at the northeast part of the map, there's quite often some events that pull you way off up into there. So first off, it's worth getting the northeasternmost waypoint, and also it's worth doing those events if possible, and maybe even coming right the way up to get that skill point and that point of interest, as it's a very much an optional thing to do, and it may save you some time in the future without taking up too much time. With the Harathi hinterlands complete, we're going to come down into the Dreadnought Cliffs. And the Dreadnought Cliffs is accessible at the bottom of Lornia's Path, and that's why it was important for us to pick up that other waypoint, as that's the closest one to get us into this region. Now, starting off in here, we're going to do that quick little blue line just to pick up those two hearts, and then we're going to teleport back before following the red line right the way down. Absolutely nothing interesting going on here. The event at the very bottom left that sometimes takes place by the dungeon is usually not worth doing. It takes far too much time, just to point that out to you. With Dreadnought Cliffs complete, we're going to come into the Blazing Ridge Steeps. Now this is accessible through the top of the Fields of Ruin, so we're going to just teleport back to where we sort of finished off in that region earlier, and we're just going to follow this pink line along, coming right the way up. A lot of the events in this area take an awful long time to complete, and there's very few people doing them quite often, with the exception of with the exception of nothing here. They're all very difficult to do. I'll tag a few monsters and you know, maybe do a little bit of them, but as a general rule of thumb, just try and get through this area as quickly as possible without being too fussy about trying to finish off events. Now we're going to come into Timberland Falls, and this is accessed through the bottom of Dreadnought Cliffs, and we will just come in here following the lines along. The events in this area are more friendly, if that's a good word to use, but they're pretty sparse, so don't expect there to be a huge amount of experience to be picked up from doing the events. Now, with the blue line and the pink line's intersection point at that waypoint, so long as you've got that waypoint, you're free to do either of them, or you're free to do them in whatever order you want. But for me, this is the actual line that I followed, and I think that doing those hearts are just a slight bit easier. What we can see now is the Iron Marches, and this is accessible through the Blade Ridge Steps, or it's accessible through Plains of Ashford. Now, I actually accessed it through there, which isn't a map that we've touched upon in this, but it was because, to my shame, I'd forgotten how to access it through Blades Ridge steps, so I just quickly ran through Plains of Ashford. But if you do access it through the Blades Ridge steeps, then it's basically accessed by where the blue arrow on the right finishes. So basically flip that arrow around and come back down to where it starts. If you do it the way I did and you do go through Plains of Ashford, you can pick and choose which of those two blue arrows you want to use, and there is in fact a waypoint at the bottom there which has just been cropped off in this image. Then once you've completed them, you're going to pick up the pink line, and you're going to just follow that along right the way up towards the top. With that done, we're going to head over to Mount Maelstrom, which is accessed through the bottom of Timberland Falls, and it basically pops you out where the two blue lines start. You can follow either of them. It doesn't make any difference. You can pick and choose your own adventure here. For me, I went over to the left and I followed that path down first before teleporting back to the start point and then choosing to go down towards the right. But as I say, pick and choose which you prefer in that situation. It won't make any difference. Now, and we're in the end here, we are going to head over to Fireheart Rise. At this point, you're going to be getting very close to the level 70 mark, and we enter into it through, I believe it's the Iron Marshes again, and we enter in where this pink line starts. So we're going to follow that along, and then once we have completed that heart, teleport back down, and we're going to follow that blue line back up. Now, the reason that I have got that teleport in here, as opposed to just following the line through, is for me, the actual route I took was I went over to Mount Maelstrom. I did the route on the left-hand side. I did the pink line here in Fireheart Rise, and then went back to Mount Maelstrom, did the right-hand side, and then I did the final bit of Fireheart Rise. And that's because Fireheart Rise seems to get very difficult in this section, and I was finding myself really struggling, so I decided to do a bit more leveling in Mount Maelstrom. But as I say, Mount Maelstrom I found easy overall, so you shouldn't have a problem if you just do that first and then Fireheart Rise. But if you did want to follow along with exactly what I did, that's how you do it. Finally, with Fireheart Rise complete, we can head over to Frost Gorge Sound, and this is going to be the last place that we're going to do leveling. So as you enter into here, you should really be sort of level 70 plus. Now we enter in through Fireheart Rise, so it's where we should have finished off the last bit. And again, you can pick and choose which of these two blue lines you want to follow to start with. I did the big long one at the bottom to start with, and then I came up and I did the top one, which was just because I was still shy a few levels. Once I'd completed all this, I was level 78, I was nearly 79, but I then went away and actually did a few of the world events, so the big world bosses on the dragon timer. As I say, or as I've said previously, there's going to be a link in the description for how you can find that website, and it's self-explanatory, and you should have them all unlocked at this point, or you should have waypoints near all of them at this point, so you can just jump around them and complete them, which can be a really fun way to finish up your leveling experience. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. If we can get over 1,000 likes, which is about double the amount I've ever had on any video, I'll do the full 3-hour-long strategy guide where I will talk through the nitty-gritty detail of all these maps, as opposed to just being like, follow this line. As I say though, hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully it's been useful to you. If you get any problems or you have any improvements, let me know in the comments. I always love hearing from you. Thank you, and I will see you next time.